Good evening, everyone, and welcome to Queer Culture Club, our monthly short format interview series that focuses on LGBTQ people who are defining the queer culture of yesterday, today, and tomorrow. My name is Terry Beswick, and I'm the host and moderator for the Queer Culture Club. So every second Thursday monthly, we interview queer culture makers, including authors, playwrights, historians, activists, artists, and archivists. That's a lot of A's there, to learn about their work process, inspirations, hopes, and dreams. And tonight, I am so delighted to have as a very special guest, Mimi Demissew. Mimi uses she, her, or they, them pronouns and is the executive director of Our Family Coalition here in San Francisco. Prior to joining OFC, she helped launch a social entrepreneurship organization in 2008 and currently serves on its board. She also serves on the board of a smaller nonprofit focusing on education and family planning in Baltimore. She is passionate about aligning her professional skills with work organizations that promote social equity and racial justice. So, as a native of Virginia, Demissew was a longtime Baltimore resident and now lives in the East Bay. And with that, let's bring on Mimi. Hey. How are you? Thanks so much for joining us here tonight on Queer Culture Club.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah. How long have you been in this position now? I forget. It seems like
it's been a little over a year now.
Oh, congratulations.
So much happening. But yeah, it's been a little over a year.
What a crazy year to begin a new job, huh?
Yeah.
And relocate from Baltimore?
Yeah, I did. Yeah. With my wife and our with our now 3-year-old.
Oh, wow. And what a crazy time to become 3 too, in the middle of this pandemic that's hopefully winding down now. So, and Mimi, so talk to me. I mean, I'd love to, hear about what that's been like a little bit later. Maybe we can talk more about, OFC's responses to the pandemic, but maybe you could just tell me a little bit more about yourself, and what drew you to working at Our Family Coalition.
Sure. So I'm a mother, and prior to coming to Our Family Coalition, I actually was running a center in Maryland that was focused on, empowering and advocating for sexual and gender minority rights, right? And when I became a parent, that became very isolating, right? There was no services within the center. The people that were coming in and the services that were providing had nothing to do with families and queer families. And I just remembered how isolating that whole journey was to parenthood, to becoming a parent, and then having the child later. So at any rate, when families have kids, there's always this change or something that happens, and that also happened for my family, where we realized that we don't want to necessarily have our roots in the East. We want to go somewhere else. And so as we were thinking about those things, I was looking at different job opportunities in the West Coast, and other areas that was warm, close to the ocean. And those were like our main priorities. And I came across Our Family Coalition, and it really spoke to everything that I'm living, right? And that my whole family's living. It's an organization that's supporting LGBTQ family rights through advocacy, education, parent support programs. And, I fell in love with the mission of the organization. I really wanted to align myself with the work that they were doing. So I threw my hat in the ring.
That's so great that you have that personal experience to bring into your role. I think, that's so often the basis for so much great activism, when people, personally have experienced difficulties or challenges, and then try to come up with solutions for everyone, right? And that's kind of like what you're doing, right? Are you always drawn to creating systemic solutions for everyone else?
It's such a small organization, but so mighty in all of the different things that we've done, right? And so we do try to, one of the major deliverables for us is to enact policy changes. So this year alone, we were working in partnership with the California Working Family Coalition to push the Chosen Family Bill so that we could expand the definition of family so that those folks could also have rights to paid sick leave and emergency paid emergency sick leave. And so the work that we do is really, you don't realize that the laws haven't really caught up with our families until you try to do something. And then you find out, oh, I've got to pay a fine, I've got to hire a lawyer. And you just have to jump through so many hoops just to get simple things like parental recognition,
Right.
And then there's also the other things of just entering different spaces that are supposed to be providing family services. And you see that even the forms aren't even up to date. Like the forms are still thinking of these binary ideas of like a mother and father, and families have just changed. I mean, even outside of LGBTQ families, I mean, there's single parents, there's children being raised by grandparents. It's just the things just catch up with the reality of what families look like today.
Right. And so that's a big part of the work that our Family Coalition does, right? Advocacy, and has for years really been a leader in working in coalition, which makes sense with the name of your organization being Our Family Coalition, but you work in coalition with other groups that advocate things like the Fair Education Act and the implementation of the Fair Education Act, but more specifically, things that fulfill the mission, right, of the organization, which is to help queer families, especially, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And we really do believe in partnership. I think there's this idea sometimes in nonprofits where everyone tries to do things alone, and change doesn't happen that way. The problem is so huge that we need to partner up. And then I think that's the only way that we're going to make any kind of significant changes to improve our lives.
Yeah, and all the different organizations bring different things to the table. But what's impressive, I think, about Our Family Coalition is that you're a grassroots, you're a small organization that does so much on an advocacy level, really out of proportion to the size of the organization, which is really focused on providing support and direct services to families. Is that right?
Yeah, absolutely.
And what does that look like? Talk to me about your programs and how you work with families.
Sure. Yeah, so on the direct services that we provide a lot of different, family support services, right? We so different groups so here we have this big umbrella called, LGBTQ families and children. But within that larger identity are these smaller niche identities that also need representation and affirmation. So we provide a lot of support groups for trans parents who have kids. We have different support groups for BIPOC parents. Mm-hmm. And we also have support groups for parents who are trying to have children. So A Womb to Grow is a popular event that we do where we provide folks different ways of having, a path to parenthood, and be it adoption, surrogacy, insemination. And so those are some of the things that we do. And then during the pandemic, we've also had to put a greater emphasis on mental health, because a lot of people were just feeling the pressure of and the insecurity of what the pandemic meant, either with housing security, or job security. And so, and people were already feeling these pressures prior to the pandemic. So the pandemic just exacerbated everything. So we moved everything online, and then we found ourselves providing programming and support services to families across the country, not just in California. And so right now, since the pandemic, right now what we're doing is we're slowly opening up. We're keeping hybrid services available, and we've even just recently started doing child respite care for parents who may want to come to our space, have their children watched, and for them to just have a break for a bit to focus on anything else that they may need, or get connected to resources through us.
Oh my God, I wish my mom had something like that when she was raising 5 little kids.
Wow.
Yeah. Yeah, but no, that makes a lot of sense. Yeah, and I know people have experienced a lot of stress in relationships and families and everything else during the pandemic for a variety of reasons. But So how are you keeping your finger on, what the needs are in the community? And what do you see as the greatest need right now? And how are you, I think you're doing a survey, right? Can you tell us about that?
Yeah, absolutely. So last year, towards the end of the year, we launched a community needs assessment, and we're doing this work in partnership with a researcher from Johns Hopkins University, and we created a survey to find out what are the needs that families are facing. Like, what are some of the things? We're hoping that the survey is going to really guide our policy work. It's going to really guide our programming work moving forward. And another thing that we did last year is we did a first round of focus groups to get more in-depth understanding of what are some issues. And then this year, we launched this initiative nationwide so that we could hear from queer families across the country. So we're asking queer families across the country to fill out the survey, but more importantly, to sign up for the focus group. And you can find all of that on the link that's being shared right now. And if you do sit through the focus group, you will get an incentive, for participating.
Oh,
but it's really, yeah.
So you're targeting parents of children, LGBTQ parents of children. Is that right?
Yeah, we really want to hear from LGBTQ parents. We really want to hear from the children of LGBTQ parents. We really want to hear from, LGBTQ folks that want to start families. And I think that when we start seeing, so we've already started just reviewing some initial data and just seeing the stuff that's coming in from California, parents are all looking for a reprieve. People need a break. School closures put an additional burden on primary caregivers, and those sometimes can be disproportionately are women, right? And so those people had to really leave work to take care of kids, and it's a really difficult situation to be in. You don't know what to do with your kid. You have to be at home. You can't work, but you still have to work, and so there's a lot of economic challenges. A lot of challenges around childcare, a lot of challenges around isolation. And then now we're seeing challenges around just being exhausted with having everything on the screen. And so far, things are kind of 50-50. People really want to come back and connect and have have in-person services. At the same time, there's also that fear. This virus is going to constantly be changing. It's a virus. And so people are still feeling uneasiness. And so we're trying to meet those needs by providing hybrid services. But and then there's also the needs that we just haven't captured yet. So if there's other things, by all means, just email us. If you don't feel like filling out the survey because you're just tired, if you don't feel like sitting through a focus group because you've already given so much just getting through the day, send an email to media@ourfamily.org and just go ahead and just, tell us anything, hey, I like this that you're doing. Hey, do this for me. Or this is something that I'm going through, just whatever it is, just let us know. We need to hear from the community. It's really important for us to continue and to maintain being a community-driven organization.
That's great. I've, worked with organizations that had hotlines, and this isn't a hotline, but it's so wonderful to hear the very specific concerns that people have and try to, in a hands-on way, address them rather than, just being a nameless, faceless, organization. I think that's great to have that connection, make that offer. So I appreciate your generosity and of your staff around that. I think it's great. I have a really good friend of mine that teaches kindergarten in San Francisco.
Oh.
And he's been doing it for several years, and just he really loves it, and he's a great teacher. I think at least looking at the cards he gets from his students, I'd say he's a great teacher. They love him, But last year, of course, he was just online, with 25 kids, which had to be crazy for the parents as well, But they actually did pretty well, he thought, in terms of learning the basic, skills that they had to learn. I think the thing that they missed out on was the socialization. But this year with his new class, he's got kindergartners who didn't do any preschool here, and so they don't. They haven't got those. So and they're in person now, which is great. But they didn't have that socialization either. And your child is 3, right?
Yep. And so so around 1 and 2, right? Kids don't really want to socialize. They do something called parallel play, where they'll just play side by side. So it's okay if you happen to have if shelter in place is happening and you have a 1 and 2-year-old, you're kind of blessed, right? Mm-hmm. But after they pass 2, then they want to do that social interaction. So yeah, my kid is a COVID kid. He has, if he was an adult, he would be the most socially awkward person. He just doesn't know how to interact. Yeah. So, but no, we brought him to the child respite care today, and it was nice that, he was able to interact with another child, and we brought him to some other programs of Toddler and Me, and he's gotten opportunities to interact with other kids through that, and you can, and you can find the children who haven't had that socialization, and and we'll learn more about what it means to have gone through COVID at this age, at this developmental stage.
Yeah, and so there are some unique challenges for LGBTQ families that your organization is set up to address, I think, which is wonderful. And I'm wondering, just the awareness among the general public about the fact that there are LGBTQ families, that they exist, that they have kids, it seems to be kind of marginal, but I think we've become more public in recent years about our family, more open. Are we having more LGBTQ families year by year, or LGBTQ people with kids, or kids without parents? What do you see? What's the trajectory? What's going on?
So I will say that it's easier, right, to have children, because the people who were having kids prior to my generation, it was really underground, right? You're contacting nurses, you're trying to find friend groups, and you're doing things in your homes. It's very secretive. There's a lot of stigma associated with queer folks trying to have children, and so there's that shame that some folks have also internalized, right? Mm-hmm. And then we have people who are like my generation, or like millennials and Gen Xers are probably, have a lot more ease to getting inseminated through fertility clinics, but there's no the accessibility is there, but the affirmation isn't really there. And what I mean by that is that, there's still who is this other person? There's no understanding or recognition of the different kinds of families. Certain things are illegal, for instance, depending on the state that you're in, that you have to go through a certain kind of expensive process because your partnership isn't recognized, and that still occurs. And so right now, I told you we did this nationwide. We launched our community needs assessment nationwide, and we focused on contacting centers, because one thing that LGBTQ centers are notorious about is they'll forget about elders, they'll forget about women, and have no idea about how to support LGBTQ families. So we want to go through the centers to talk to where their families are, so that we can hear from them, and then later on, help bolster family services across the country in those centers, because it's just, for whatever reason, there's the movement, and then this wanting to have children thing it's not always syncing, even though there's more of us, to your point, but still just not.
Okay, yeah, well, and I think that there's not a lot of understanding just generally, even within the LGBTQ community, about the challenges and about the fact that they exist, or how do you start a family, all that stuff. I'm actually really interested to know what resources do you have for people specifically if they just have questions about, how, what would it look like to start a family,
Yeah, we have a lot of workshops around that. We have webinars, we dedicate a few times throughout the year where we provide workshops, and also different events for maybe, we have a sperm meets egg event, so we could have people, meet and maybe have donors, and for guys, maybe you can meet like a surrogate. And so we have different ways of helping push that through, and also connecting you with other like groups, and also trying to find funding, because all of these things are expensive, right? If you go this other route. And so
Yeah.
we provide all of the information, and because there's a lot of misinformation out there too, that people
Mhm.
are just speaking anecdotally. And so we have 25 years of research and paper and lived experience and understanding of the laws. And so there's just a lot of knowledge within the organization. And so we offer those things through webinars and workshops and different family programming events that we do throughout the year.
That's great. And so, I mean, we have limited time. This is a short format show, but I do want to
Yeah.
make sure, Mimi, to talk a little bit about, providing education around queer history in the schools in California. You've done so much work around that, and I know your staff has as well. And we've worked with them on that as well. But I think the connection here is, whether a kid's parents are queer or not, that so often they don't learn that LGBTQ people have existed throughout history, and have made such important contributions to our culture. And then these kids don't have role models to identify with, that which I think is so important to know about their heritage, or their parents' heritage, so that they know, that it's okay, that they're okay, which is really
Yeah.
the critical issue. So, can you talk to me what's going on around the
No,
implementation?
I will. And before I dive into that, I just want to also say we have a town hall September 26th at Baker's Beach. So just check out our calendar, ourfamily.org, check it out, sign up. You'll learn about more things. You'll meet other families. But to answer your
Will
question,
there be food there? Is it a barbecue or?
yes, we're gonna be cooking. We're gonna be
Okay.
grilling. We'll be providing some food, some giveaways, drinks, water, soda, things, things of that
Okay, I'll try
nature.
to make it. That sounds fun.
Right. Yeah. And so I guess we are short on time, but there's one thing I do want to emphasize. The reason that the new law and allocation was written is because there hasn't been enough training for teachers, even if there is an expectation for them to do it, right? And so just to speak to some of the work that we've been doing, we're still working with the California Department of Education on implementation across the state. The past few years, we've had several trainings on behalf of different county offices of educations. And like for this purpose, like California is divided up into different regions across the state, and each region has a representative that should be allocating resources into how history should be taught. And a portion of that can be used to train educators on how to incorporate LGBTQ plus inclusive history and social science. If you want to see a list of representatives from each region, you could check out the link that's showing right now. Now, if you have a community that needs these trainings and you aren't seeing any movement on it, then we highly encourage you to contact a regional representative. Also, a good starting point is we worked with Sacramento County Office of Education and the CLICK project to create a 15-minute video primer for teachers that may not be able to access training. And you can find that video and that information here.
That's wonderful. Yeah, that's great. Thank you so much for those resources. It's kind of like the Fair Education Act. I mean, I think it really did create a lot of standards, and implementation that was key. It's like, getting that information in a way that's accessible to the teacher, because they have so many topics they're supposed to cover and everything else. And And I think what's interesting about this is that it's supposed to be like, not like, let's make gay history day, but it's supposed to be like integrated throughout the lesson plans, right? Through the
Stop
year.
editing history. I mean, it's really
Yeah.
that. Like the
Yeah.
history is there, so just teach all of it, and the work is so great. I mean, we have a great partnership with One Archives, but we should be also partnering together to expand the work because there's just so much to do.
Yeah, we've definitely been focusing on that. And one thing that we've realized is that, you know, we really need dedicated staff to work on education issues. And I know you have Rick, you have great staff to work on that. And so that's something that we're prioritizing, actually, to just get some funding for a staff person to really dig in and work with y'all on making this a reality, because it's important, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. So you've been on the job for like a year, and obviously you've learned so much about the work, and I'm sure people are learning a lot from you. Are you still having fun? You seem like you still are having fun.
I love it. I really do.
That's good. Yeah.
Yeah, and I really love the staff. And like you said, Rick is amazing. Everyone there is just so dedicated and cares so much about the work. And it's a
Yeah.
great place to work. I've never had such a wonderful work experience before this.
So what do you see as the next big opportunities or challenges for our family coalition, and how can people help?
Oh, I'm glad you asked that. So, we plan on, releasing our new strategic plan next year to talk about some of the things that we're working on. And one of the big things that we want to have is our own building. So we'll be launching a capital campaign towards that end. It's important for us not to be victims of like these high rents that we have in this area. It's important for community members to always have a place to go to receive services and trainings.
Great. Well, I'd love to talk to you more about that offline. Actually, I'm sure we could share ideas about resources for making that a reality. And if there's anything that we can do, or I can do personally to help with that, never hesitate to reach out.
Okay, I'll definitely take you up on that.
Okay. Great. Well, I just want to thank you again for joining us on the show, and hope that we can do this again sometime, and or plan some events, together. I think, or projects together that help to get the message of LGBTQ history out there. There's so many great stories to tell.
Yeah, I agree, and I definitely want that to happen. So we should definitely connect offline outside of this. And I just thank you so much for giving me the opportunity to talk about our family coalition.
Absolutely. I love our family coalition. I love you, and I have a wonderful evening. And thanks everyone for joining us.
Bye.
And we'll see you soon. Oh, and next month's guest is Charlie Beal from the Gilbert Baker Foundation. So please tune in. Thanks.